Hello again, my name is Sam Robinson, and this is the Gnostic Syncretist Podcast. Thank you for joining me tonight. All are welcome here, and no matter what your belief system or what your background, thank you for coming. Once again, my name is Sam Robinson, and tonight I want to go over the cosmic scheme of humanity's involution through various states of existence, forms, and types of consciousness. This is a little bit different than the last one, though it does relate to the last podcast on the origins of the mystery school tradition. So tonight it is going to be more about the origins of mankind or humanity and the cosmic process through which we originated and came to this point in our history where we are now in the 21st century. There is a long archetypal scheme going back to our pre-physicality and far back before the mystery school traditions that is our actual origins. And the reason this is important is because there are so many concepts out there, many of which are incorrect according to the tradition of occultism and the esoteric mystery schools. And they are a deliberate or unintentional, yet still deviant attempt to mislead the majority of seekers from their true origins, the true origins of humanity, and the true cosmology of our involution and evolution through different types of consciousness and forms and vehicles of expression as a reflected monad of the divine source of reality. And I could name several off the top of my head immediately. And I don't think I didn't encounter these myself. I did, but I moved past them. There is Ancient Aliens, which has become so big, it's unbelievable how big it's become and how much BS they're continually pushing. And that one is a false paradigm. You have the one that the various ones that just simply have to do with not only aliens and ancient aliens, but like some sort of spiritual alien progenitors of humanity, which obviously, just like ancient aliens, involves splicing our DNA with, some sort of humanoid and ape-like being, which allowed us to become who we are today. Also BS. Now, whether there was genetic engineering or genetic tampering, I would like to rather say, back in the day, that's probably without question true. Yet it is not where we come from. It is not our origins. They did not make us. They may have tampered with us, and it wouldn't have been aliens. It would have been ourselves tampering with ourselves during certain epochs, like the Atlantean epoch, when they did a lot of things like genetic tampering. And but then there's also, the normal paradigms of the New Age, which involve all sorts of strange things, from Pleiadians to blue avians and galactic councils, and Nordic races, and very strange, nonsensical stories about our origins that are just totally false, that are not based in any sort of tradition. It's almost like fantasy. I mean, it's literally like spiritual fantasy storybook writing, except it's in video format and it's for media consumption, and they're totally misleading people and they're making a lot of money doing it. And I'm here to set this straight. So right here we have Blavatsky's original blueprint, which honestly the Eastern concept of the different globes, which are states of Earth incarnation, which we go through in different rounds. And a round is this entire thing times 7. So And we're in the 4th round and on the 4th globe. We've already gone through 7 globes 3 times, which is round 1 all the way through, round 2 all the way through, and round 3 all the way through. And then we went through these 3 Earths right here, and incarnations of the Earth, and we are here on this globe, on the lowest plane of physical matter, as monadic beings ensouled in human form. And then you get into root races. But prior to all that, you had a globe A, a globe B, and a globe C, which are various degrees of manifestation of the Earth sphere. So different degrees of densification, different degrees of substance, and so to speak, physicality or non-physicality. Either way, we're not fully physical till right here, which is where we are. So we're halfway through the entire scheme, which is 7 of these times 7. So this is one round, this whole thing going through all 7 of these Earth manifestations. And there's 7 rounds. We're in the 4th round, and we're halfway through that right here, so to speak. There's still 5, 6, and 7 left. So it's called the 777 Incarnations scheme. And to understand that is to understand everything in terms of cosmology. Here you have the first plane, which is the plane of the absolute. We have the second plane, another one that's very similar to the absolute, called Malaprakiti, which is like a veil thrown over the first plane. And then you have the third plane, which is basically formless world of spirit. Now, if you want to look at the Kabbalistic tree, which is right here, which is another version of this scheme explained using the Kabbalah. This is Geburah, Chesed, Tiferet, Hod, Yesod, Netzach, and Malkuth. And then up here, what do you have? You have Kether, Tokma, Bana. And above that, you have Ein Sof. Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Ar. So you have these various planes, these various states of being or conditions of existence. And this is how reality actually manifests and differentiates itself down to our level down here. So, and they don't teach you this in the New Age. They don't teach you this in Ancient Aliens or on Gaia TV or when they talk about Pleiadians or Blue Avians or Galactic Councils or any of that other BS out there or the Aldebaran myth from the Nazis. It's not in there. Though I will say the occult schools that push these things, like the Aldebaran myth and the Nazi occult Order of the Black Sun that used to exist, and the remnants of it that still exist, they know all this, and they don't want you to know it. They want to make sure you never know about this scheme, which is, of course, easily accessible to anybody who reads The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky, or The Rosicrucian Cosmic Conception by Max Heindel, or even Rudolf Steiner's Cosmic Memory, or even an even more basic theosophical book, like I have it over here, hidden, so to speak, but it's called Ocean of Theosophy by William Q. Judge, one of the other founders of the Theosophical Society, along with Blavatsky, and a major occultist along with her. So you have a monad, which is your divine spark of reflected life, light essence of the absolute principle. The absolute principle is the one principle in existence, the only thing that's eternal. It is unconditioned, meaning there are no conditions that are attributed to it. It has no attributes or characteristics. It is, meaning there is no way to pin it down. It is absolutely without conditions, attributes, characteristics, traits, personality, emotion, or anything. It is an absolute, eternal, unconditioned principle or essence that is the source of all manifested existence. You are a reflection of that source. Now, that source manifests a logos or God that is the highest God. And some would call it Brahma, some would call it various other names. And that is the one or the all That is the, so to speak, second manifestation. Well, it's the first manifestation in existence, but it is the second in order of below the absolute. So there's the absolute, then there's something thrown over the absolute they call Mulla Prakriti. Mulla Prakriti is like a veil of pre-cosmic substance thrown over the absolute in the sense of like a shroud. Now, and the way they explain this is that to Brahma, Mulla Prakriti is the absolute, though it's not, because that's all it's allowed to even glimpse as the highest divinity in existence. And he does have a lifespan. Of course, it's the entire cosmic, what they call a Manvatara or Maha Manvatara, which is 311 trillion years, they say. He is reabsorbed back into Mulla Prakriti and the absolute at the end of that age. But when the next cycle begins, he's remanifested as the exact same highest divinity again. So he's technically temporal. He has a death, but since he's reconstituted, it's not even a he really. It's sexless. It's genderless. It's it's called Brahma, but it's not male. It is reconstituted every single cycle as the same being that it was before. It's the all or the one, or Kether in the Kabbalah, and is not a creator. It is an emanator. It makes emanations. It is emanationism, which means it radiates out from itself the various things in existence. And that is what our monad is a reflection of, is that one ultimate being, behind which is the absolute eternal essence. So our monad is a reflection of this logos. And then you have, out of that creation, after that, one logos is manifested. Differentiation begins. And there is a male and female, or matter and spirit principle, manifested and emanated out of that singular, all potential source of manifestation, the logos. And this is called cosmic ideation and cosmic substance, or what do they call it in the Theosophical tradition? Prakriti, and I think pradhana. And then you have something else in the Theosophical tradition called fohat, which is the cosmic electrifying force, the vivifying force, the fructifying force that unites the two. So there's always a trinity. However, the reason I bring this up is because in reality, in a universe, in our manifested existence, there's always polarities that become a triune or a trinity, because everything has to be in equilibrium. When you have duality, there is no equal. There is a sort of staticness, but to have active manifestation, you have to have a equalized, equilibrated, as they would say, uniter, which is in the Kabbalah why everything's in threes, is because you have to have something that brings things back in equilibrium. You have force and form, and then a equalizer below that it unites in. That's why there's three trinities. Well, so to speak, yeah, three trinities really, and or triads they call them. So you have to have this scheme for things to be balanced within the cosmos. It's like a law. It's a natural cosmic law. It's the law of the universe. There are polarities, and then there are triarities or trinitaries, that are the polarity united in a singular focal point that then breaks into two again and then refocuses in a third principle and then on down the chain. So this is what you have here: archetypal, intellectual, substantial or formative world, and then the physical material world. But here you have the trinity right here. And once again, you have to bear this all in mind, that you are a reflection of this trinity. You are a triune being yourself, regardless of what the ancient aliens, the blue avians, and all these other spiritual deviant ideologies are teaching people. It is not the full truth nor anywhere close to it. It's really a materialization of the truth, or at least the truth as the sacred mystery school tradition sees it, and is actually an inversion of it because it takes away your divinity and turns it into some sort of genetic like form of alien or divine DNA, which is, I can tell you right now, DNA is never mentioned a single time in any of the books behind me, and I have an enormous amount of books, almost 100 occult books back there by some of the best occultists of the last 200 years. And let me tell you, almost none of them, except for one, are alive for the most part. Just about. The best ones all died before 1950, and the only one that didn't, was not an occultist, but an occult philosopher, was Manly P. Hall, and he died in 1990. But pretty much all the best ones by 1956 or earlier were already dead. The ones that really went into cosmology. So you have a monad that is a reflection of the divine one and logos. It's like a radiation. It's your spirit. It's eternal. And here is an example of this. There's the solar logos. Here's your monad. These are monadic fragments. These are the 7 bodies. You have what they call an atmic body. The Atma is the spirit. You have the Buddhic body, which is the vehicle of the spirit. It is the spiritual soul. So in this scheme, everything has to have an ensouling principle within a formative principle. So force and form. You have to have a vehicle for the expression of the thing being ensouled. Otherwise, the thing being ensouled has no way of expressing itself. But then on the other side of that, if you have a vehicle without anything in it, then it's just an empty vehicle without expression. So you have to have an expressive spiritual principle within a vehicle to express itself. But then it goes down the chain. So the Atma is the spirit, Buddhi is the spiritual soul, the vessel for the Atma, and they're always linked in Theosophy. The higher self is the bridge between, basically above and below this point, because these are very, very significant and sacred and spiritual, while everything below that is much more temporal and earthy and more psychic than spiritual. You have the higher mental vehicle, which is called the manas, the mind. And then you have a lower mind and a higher mind. An intuitive one, which is the higher mind, then you have a lower one, which is the reasoning mind, or in logic and concepts, conceptualization. When the higher mind unites with these, you have the higher self and access to it. Otherwise, we stay down here in the lower mind with brief snippets, or you know, there's brief moments where we are intuitive and we break up into the higher self and then come back down again. To have full access to the higher self takes a lifetime of training, and that is when you are truly a spiritual being. Well, you're always spiritual, but to be actively spiritual permanently, not like you stay in the intuitive state forever, but to have easy access to it, that is once you unite these 3. Otherwise, it's just basically kind of is latent. Down here, you have lower mental body. Then you have the I, which is involved with this, the ego. Then you have the astral body, which is the elemental vehicle. Then you have the etheric body, which is another elemental vehicle. So then you have the condensed elemental vehicle of the physical body. And that is the vessel and vehicle of physical form that houses the various principles that are within it, that are what really make up you as a being. The physical body is not you. These are you. Here's another way of showing it. You have the spirit body, Atma. You have what they would call here the life spirit, Buddhi. These 2 are joined. You have the spirit self, Manas, the higher I. You have the soul, the lower I. which is sometimes called the animal soul. And this is the higher soul. Then you have the astral body, which is like your subconscious. These are tied together, and then these are tied together. And then this is kind of a bridge between all of these. When these unite, you are truly enlightened. Astral body and subconscious, and then the etheric body and the physical body are absolutely joined together as one. It's sometimes called the etheric double because it is an absolute etheric blueprint and image of your actual physical body, and is very much attached to the physical body. They're inseparable throughout life, while your astral body actually exhibits itself at night when you go to sleep. These are never separated, except for very rare circumstances. We'll go over in a different podcast. So this is another way of looking at it, and here's even another one. This is the Rudolf Steiner version of it. He makes it a ninefold man as opposed to a sevenfold or a fourfold. Here are three different ways of classifying the human being. The ninefold, you have spirit man, life spirit, spirit self. Then you have spiritual soul, intellectual soul, and sentient soul. And then you have the soul body, the etheric body, and the physical body. This is the astral body. Etheric body and physical body are always the same. But the ego right here makes up these two souls. And the soul body and the astral body are always identical. So in the fourfold one, which is some other version that is utilized by another occult school, I forget which one it is, but the fourfold, you have angelic consciousness, the ego, astral body, etheric body, physical body. This is Steiner's, Rudolf Steiner, a esoteric Christian and former theosophist. And then here is the theosophical version. Atma, Buddhi, Manas, ego making up these three, and then the astral body and the physical body. And here is the one in Blavatsky's book, The Secret Doctrine. Spirit, vehicle of spirit, which is the Buddhi, the spiritual soul. Mind, apudi of mind. Upadi means the vehicle of the mind, the animal soul. And then you have the life principle, and then the astral body, apudi, the vehicle of life, the apadi of life. And then you have the apadi of all six, which is the physical body. So in some, they would basically call life principle the same thing as the, well, they basically either flip these two or they change this one to be the lower soul. Either way, it really doesn't matter. It's all the same. This is Blavatsky's. But the point being, there's always a vehicle for the principle. Principle, vehicle, principle, vehicle, principle, vehicle, on and on. Okay. Well, but then here you have the actual scheme of our involution. And the reason this is absolutely significant, and I know I've done a video on this before about 6 months ago, is because there's so much nonsense and BS out there trying to deviate humanity from their spiritual origins. And they're doing a great job, especially with the algorithms. But unfortunately, just because a lot of people don't know about this stuff and people don't do as many videos on these things, they're not particularly easy to explain. So we'll go back to the very beginning. This is called a round. There are 7 rounds. There are 7 Earth incarnations in each round. Then there are 7 rounds. The Earth in us, as waves of life and waves of monads, go through 777 incarnations, which is really just 7 times 7 times 7, which I think, if I remember, is 343. Point being, you won't find this anywhere else except for in these occult books. And it had never been released before until Blavatsky released this. Ever. Bear that in mind. So, as we go through, the way they explain this, it is that we have what's called lunar ancestors, which were called the Pitris. Now, it's not the Pitris you're thinking of. You have what are called the lunar ancestors, or the Lunar Pitris. They were beings that were extremely astro-ethereal. astral and etheric beings, or a mix of the two. And the way it's explained that we originated as a being was through them basically, so to speak, projection of their own shadow. We are a shadowy projection of these already astral etheric beings called the Lunar Pitris. They are our progenitors, our ancestors. They were basically beings from what would be called the higher or angelic hierarchies. They were beings that had already been going along in the spiritual evolutionary chain of existence. And the chain goes from the least advanced or complex to the most complex and then back up to the least complex again. It is a giant arc. It is a U-shaped curve where you start in spirit, the most rarefied, pure, absolute spirit you can imagine. And that spirit differentiates further and further down these planes, becoming grosser and grosser and more dense and more material as it goes until it reaches the physical plane, which is where we are, which would be called the apex of materialism or materiality. Then is the human stage. In the human stage, we're in peak material, peak physicality. That's what we are. Before that, we are not. We are humans in formation. We don't look like humans. We don't have a human type consciousness, but it's us, pre-human. And then we dip into matter and we reach the human stage. And there's many aspects to this human stage that aren't even fully material like we are today. Point being, then on the other end of the scheme, this is called involution, from down to here. The first half of the bell curve is involution, the spirit involving itself in matter. Then becomes the stage of evolution, evolving back out of matter, back up to the first plane, which is the end of the scheme. And that's a long way away. But we are on the upper swing of this arc that will lead us back out of complete materialism, not only as an ideology and a social cultural matrix of entrancement and entrapment, but actually physically ascending out of matter, becoming etherealized again, and then becoming astral, and then becoming even and basically going up even higher than that. But we will keep everything we've gained in these states prior to that. So we'll have our mental body and our astral body and our etheric body, and those will become even more rarefied as they move out of the material plane. And our physical body. So always remember, it is a scheme of involution followed by evolution. It's not just evolution. There's also involution, which is the dipping into matter by spirit, and then evolution is the rising of the monad out of matter back into spirit to re-spiritualize itself. And this is the same scheme taught by every one of the mystery school traditions, no matter whether it's Rosicrucian, Theosophical, Gnostic, Christian, or what have you, or the ancient pagan mystery school traditions. They all said that this re-spiritualization would always be the case, and that the first part of that scheme is the falling into it, and then the rising back out is the second half. We are in the beginning of the second part of this evolutionary scheme, this spiritual development of the monadic being that is at the moment expressing itself through the human form. All of us are doing that. And so these Lunar Pitris, these beings that are, so to speak, our progenitors, perform what would be called a, like almost an astral projection out of an astral being that is us. And that is our first form that the monad is ensouled into. And at that point, we are simply in a state of a formed being of no physical substance, but it is of a cosmic substance that is astral and etheric, and it has a monad. in a vehicle. That's all it has. It is senseless, mindless. It is without reason, as they would say. They call it a shadow of a shadow in Blavatsky's book. So this is a projection out of their own essence. And then after this stage, they basically are, they're no longer basically in that story anymore. The Lunar Pitris are not gone, but I guess you could say they watch over us as part of one of the creative hierarchies. Following this, you go on to Globe A in round one. And on Globe A and round one, and mainly throughout round one, think of this as round one, you go through what's called the mineral stage. Or in this version, which is the Rosicrucian one, you have the Saturn stage, the Sun stage, the Moon stage, and then you have the Earth stage. Following these three stages, or these three rounds, and the fourth round is the one we're on, after the fourth round, you have the Jupiter, Venus, and Vulcan rounds, or epochs. And that is the future path of mankind right here. We've already traversed through these, and just reimagine this Saturn sphere as holding this number of globes on it. Each one of those has a globe of 7 different Earths, which are different in different states of differentiation and densification into physicality. And it's only on this final stage right here that we actually become fully physicalized, materialized. And it's not even in the beginning of that stage. And I know this is a lot, but try to stick with me here. This is where you have what's called the 7 root races: the Polarian, the Hyperborean, the Lemurian, the Atlantean, post-Atlantean, which is what we're in right now, or it's also sometimes also called the Aryan, the 5th root race. Then you'll have the 6th and 7th epoch, the 6th and 7th root races, which are very far off. And in the post-Atlanteans, they break it up even to ancient Indian, ancient Persian, Egyptian and Chaldean, Greco-Roman. We're in the present. And then the 6th and the 7th are in the future. And whether we reach that stage or not largely depends, I would say, on our current century and where we go with technology, and whether we become one with technology in a transhumanist world system, or will we evolve beyond that and decide not to become transhuman, become merged with AI, merged with machines, which basically sends us back to the mineralized stage. But we'll go into that in another video. It's very important. It's part of the reason I'm doing this video in the first place. In the beginning of these stages, the Saturn, Sun, and Moon stage, this is the one where we just have a monad in a vehicle. It is akin to the mineral state, deep sleep, or deep sleep consciousness. So each one of these stages or phases in the evolutionary chain are essentially stages of consciousness and stages of perception, along with a different type of vehicle for that expression of that stage of consciousness. And each one of these, it gets more conscious and becomes more perceptive, and then gains an extra principle or two. And so in this stage, you have basically only the feeling of warmth, deep sleep conscious, and mineralized state of consciousness. You are akin to a being with the consciousness of a rock. It's an analogy, just bear with it. The beginnings of humanity's physical body is given by what they would call the spirits of the will. As time begins, the archai receive their ego. Then in the sun stage, also on the Saturn stage, the seed of the spirit man, the Atma, is implanted, like we said before with the Pitris. In the sun stage, so we go through a whole round here and go through these 7 Earths in that round, each one falling deeper and deeper into matter, a matter of that type of state, never to full materialism until the fourth one, until the Earth stage, which this is the Saturn stage. You go down and then you come back out at the top. Spirit falling deeper and deeper into a deeper density, and then it rises back out again. The monad does this on each one of these earths, and each one of these earths changes in density a lot, and we with it. And then we rise back up to the top, and then there is a sleep stage called a pralaya. And then we burst on to the next one, which is the sun stage, which is a little bit more complex and a little bit more, I don't know if you call it alive, but let's just say it seems more alive to the beings that are involved in this stage of cosmic evolution. The etheric body is given to humanity by the spirits of movement. The seed of the booty is implanted into the etheric body in this stage. And the archangels pass through their human stage. So bear in mind, there are other chains of beings that are far more advanced than we are. And on these phases, they are already going through stages that we haven't even reached yet down here. So they're beings far more advanced than we are, but they all had to go through the human stage just like we're going through now. So that's what this means. The archangels pass through their human stage on the sun epoch. In the next form, you go through the sun stage, then now you're in the moon stage. And don't think of it as the moon or the sun or Saturn like in our solar system. That's not what they mean by that at all, really. The moon state or the moon epoch is the same thing as the third round in Theosophy. And in that, we gain the astral body from different types of hierarchy, which is a form of angels or the spirits of the dynamis. The seed of the spirit self, manas, or the mind, is implanted into humanity's astral body. And here the angels pass through their human stage. Well, we're not really going to reach that stage until this one. So they go through this, and this is akin to in the moon epoch, you have, well, let's back up. In the sun epoch, the state of consciousness that you have, that our monads had, was akin to a deep sleep, or sorry, a sleep state. This is like unconscious entirely. This is like sleep, a deep sleep without images, without pictures, that you'd wake up and you have no remembering at all of what you dreamed. In the moon stage, it's like having dream filled sleep state of consciousness. And here we call it plant state of consciousness, and this is an animal state of consciousness because animals have dreams, as we all know. We've seen our animals basically wake up and make noises from having dreams, and that's part of the reason they make these analogies. So after the moon stage, the monads that are us as humans in the human state pass on to the earth state. And on the earth round, there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot that goes on. And so this is going to be like a snapshot now, we're going to zoom in on the earth round, the fourth round, and on the fourth globe. So we've now gone through those 3 rounds and 21 earths, so to speak. I know that sounds pretty crazy, but just bear with it. And now we're on globe A, globe B, globe C, and here we are right here. This is 3 Earths that are pre-physical. Just, let's just say that one is an astral state. This is an astral etheric state. This is an etheric state. So this is a mix of the two. And then we get to our Earth right here. And it's right here that the root races begin. The root races are the Polarian, Lemurian, Atlantean, Polarian, Hyperborean, Lemurian, Atlantean, and then the 5th root post-Atlantean root race. And root races are a very theosophically and esoteric mystery tradition derived concept. It's not like what you think of when you think of a race, which is based on colors. It has nothing to do with that. The races have to do with something else entirely. Polarians were non-physical. Hyperboreans were non-physical, but more physical, more closer to physicality than the Polarian race. This is the first root race. This is the second root race, Hyperborean. This we akin to astral. This is astro-etheric. This is the Lemurian race. And they have a lot that happens during the Lemurian race. And because each one of these 7 root races has also 7 sub races. And we don't know the names of all of them, but, or a lot of them, certainly not any of these two. The Lemurians, there are some names out there, but the main point being the initial Lemurians are an androgyne or androgynous sexless being that is then becomes hermaphroditic. And then when this is the stage when the earth and we on the earth as beings reach full physicalization, full materialization. And the Lemurians, when that happened, this is about halfway through their 7 sub races. And this is on the continent of Lemuria, which stretched from Australia to Madagascar and up north and up south by 1,000 miles. And the Lemurians were originally non-physical androgynes, then hermaphrodites, and then when they reached the physical stage, became fully physicalized on the earth as it became fully physical, if still not as physical as we are now, they split into the sexes. Male and female were created for the first time. That is called the fall of humanity. That's the fall of mankind, the one that we've all heard about in the Bible. And the fall of mankind is simply the full fall into materialization. That's all that it means. Doesn't mean that there was a sin. It is a sin only in the sense that it's not an action that was a sin. It is a sin in the sense that it's the furthest from spirit ever that it can even be. That the being has reached the furthest from the divine absolute principle or Brahma or the Logos that it can actually reach. And then it is going to re spiritualize back up to it. But until that point, it is in sin. It's in gross matter. It is in the deepest, densest physical plane, which is, so to speak, a sin because it's so far from spirit. That's all that it means. And we split into the sexes, male and female, become the 2 polarities of the human race. Prior to that, we were a sexless or hermaphroditic androgynous being. And then we do normal reproduction after that. And there's an explanation for why this occurred. And it had to do with developing certain parts of ourselves that the splitting into 2 different sexes allowed energy to be dispensed and used to form those different parts of ourselves, like different organs. And it allowed the building up of these organs by the other half not being the other half of our energy being utilized to grow those organs. That's what they say. And then after that, you get the Atlanteans. And the Atlanteans are the ones we've all heard about, except they're not how you would expect them to be considered. The Lemurians were very different than we are. And I'm going to have to do a second podcast to go into this because this has gone on a little longer than I was expecting it. And so let's do a part 2. And we're going to go into some more details on simply the 7 root races themselves and how their existence and their perception of their surroundings was for them, and how it's different for us now because we have reason, concepts, and a mental body, while they didn't really have any of those things prior to the Atlantean stage. And even the Atlanteans only had a much more rudimentary type of mental state than we do now. We are far more advanced mentally than any of these previous root races, yet they were more psychic and more spiritual. So we had to lose spirit to get the mind. And on the flip side, as we progress further through our spiritual development, we regain those same abilities while keeping mind along with it. And so this is the first half of the origins of humanity and the scheme of cosmic evolution of our monads through planetary incarnations of different Earths. And I know it's a lot, but this is, to me, the most fascinating stuff in Theosophy and Rosicrucianism. It's more the scope and the scale and the depth is staggering when it comes to the cosmology that they give out. And without that foundation, all the rest of the esoteric information and knowledge really doesn't have a firm footing in reality. Because if you don't know your origins, you don't really know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, people that want you to think something about who you are can sell you stories, sell you narratives, and sell you fictions that will absolutely change the way you look at not only yourself but your species, and it'll be disempowering. So that is a large part of the reason why I think the cosmology is absolutely fundamental and essential for all spiritual seekers, because without that foundation from cosmology, everything else is moot, really, in the end, anyway, even if you do develop spiritually. Because if you develop spiritually along a line that they're telling you is fine, well, they may not have the same moral implications. You may think that you can use AI to do that, or technology to do that, or the only reason you can do that is because aliens gave you a certain type of spiritual DNA, as opposed to spiritual principles that are latent potential within you. And that matters. The distinctions matter. So, my name is Sam Robinson. This is the Gnostic Secretist Podcast. Thank you for watching, and we will be seeing you very shortly in the second half of this video for Cosmic Origins of Humanity Part 2. Thank you for watching.